You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And now, here's two guys whose favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla, which pretty much describes their show, Evan and Joe.
Hey, this is Joe from Mc&T Sports Report. For episode 74, I'm holed up in room 119 here at the Auberge Shores Inn in Shediac, New Brunswick, a mere 641 miles from my home in Connecticut. My co-host Evan is working crazy hours at the golf course. I'm winding down after a great week of camp in St. Andrews, so we'll just get right to the show. We have our annual camper interviews, which are hilarious. But to get us going, after this short break, we'll finish off the dog days of summer by talking to someone who just wrote a book with some amazing stories involving the most iconic professional sports franchise in North American history. So stay tuned. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Our first guest is Rich Marazzi, a native of Ansonia, Connecticut, a city located about 15 minutes from New Haven. A lifelong New York Yankees fan, he's made the 67-mile trip each way to the Bronx thousands of times since he first attended a game there back 70 years ago in 1954. He was an umpire in the Yankees' annual Old Timers Day games for 16 years, has worked for ESPN, the Yes Network, and Fox Regional Sports, and is currently the baseball rules consultant for the Yankees and 15 other major league teams, including the Dodgers, Red Sox, and Mets. And to top it off, at the age of 80, he's just written a book. It's called Yankee Stories Untold, an insider's memoir from Ruth to Jeter. So to tell us some absolutely amazing stories, let's welcome in Rich Marazzi. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's get right to some of your great stories. As most people know, Babe Ruth was the original home run king with 714 homers. He's since been surpassed by the late Hank Aaron at 755 and Barry Bonds at 762. But you claim in your book that the Babe should have had at least 62 more homers, which would make him the all-time leader. Explain, please.
Well, between 1920 and 1931, there was a rule in baseball that umpires called the fair foul ball a little bit different than they call it today. In other words, when he played for most of his career, if a ball went over the wall in fair territory, that would be a home run today. However, the umpires called it fair or foul where they last saw it. So if the ball curved around the foul pole, or if it hit the ball over a roof and left the field in fair territory, as the ball kept curving foul, umpires called the ball foul. A guy in Delaware named Bill Jenkinson did a lot of research on his home runs for newspaper articles, other sources, and he concluded that Ruth lost at least 62 home runs with that rule. Okay. Also understand this too. When Babe Ruth played, the upper decks in Yankee Stadium only went as far as the foul poles. They did not go into fair territory. So the lower deck went about 200 feet beyond the playing field. So that meant that, say, with a left-handed batter, like we'll say Babe Ruth, he had a shot that went, let's say, several hundred feet or say maybe 50 feet or so beyond the wall. It probably kept curving foul because he had 200 feet to still go foul. So he probably lost home runs that way in Yankee Stadium also. Now the Polo Grounds, he got a lot of home runs because of the short right field wall, but because of the short right field, he probably hit many home runs over the roof that when they last saw the ball, it was foul.
Okay, we'll go with that. I always like going with either Babe or Hank. We won't get into the Barry Bonds today, but Evan, Evan, you have a question?
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that take. How did you go from being a Yankees fan as a kid to eventually working for the team?
Well, I got press credentials at Yankee Stadium around 1980, in the early 80s, and I eventually was hired to write for Yankees Magazine. I did a rules column. So I umpired for years, high school, college. I did games in was lived through Lyman Hall and Hampton and other places, and also some college work. And I umpired the old timers game for 16 years, and then eventually I Brian Cashman, the GM of the Yankees, used to read my column in Baseball Digest, and we would talk rules and so on. And so I proposed a program to him in 2004 to educate the players, the coaches, and managers about the rules. I realized that nobody was working with these guys about rules, and so they hired me. And eventually, I was hired by the Red Sox and other teams. And so I've worked for 24 to 30 major league teams as a rules consultant. This year, I'm working for 16 teams. So that's how that's how I began working for the Yankees.
Cool.
Now, how'd you get the old timers gig?
Well, being a writer for the Yankees magazine at the time, okay, I of course I knew the editor very well. I went over to him one day. I said, "You know what? What's my chance of umpiring a game?" And he said to me, "Let me talk to some people." So he talked to somebody, and the way it turned out, I ended up working 16 years in a row. So, and it was a great gig. I did the plate 3 different years. I loved working second base because I could just roam in the outfield and say, this is where Joe DiMaggio played. This is where Mickey Mantle played. And it was just great. And so I've been blessed. I've had a wonderful experience with baseball and working in Yankee Stadium and so forth. And I've got I get a lot of stories.
Now, after all these years of being a Yankee fan and umpiring and rules, what made you decide to write the book all of a sudden?
Well, I wouldn't say it was all of a sudden. I had an idea for a long time, I think, that I had a lot of stories, okay? And during the pandemic, I decided, you know what, I'm going to put these things into the computer and at least have them for my family as a legacy. And so that's what I did, actually. And so my book, of course, only is a small part of it involves rules, but I met so many people involved with either Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig that I could not interview. I was able to interview guys like Mickey Mantle and other Yogi Berra for Rizzuto. I had the radio show for years, 16 years, I think. Was it? How many years did I have the radio show? Something like that, 15, 16 years. And so I had Yogi on and so forth, Whitey Ford, Phil Rizzuto, and I developed a lot of stories over the years. I wrote for Sports Collectors Digest for a long time and did a lot of nostalgia columns for them involving former players, not only Yankees. So I had a lot of material. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to put this material into a book and let's see what happens.
Tell us about your amusing experience in the Yankees dugout with the late, great Don Zimmer.
Well, I was sitting in the dugout one night before a night game, and it was probably around 6 o'clock in the evening, and the Yankees were already taking their batting practice, and he was playing trivia with a friend of his apparently, and I was about maybe 30 feet to the right, and there was just the three of us in the dugout: Don Zimmer, his friend, and myself. And Don Zimmer asked his friend, "Okay, who was the Dodgers batter when Jackie Robinson stole home in 1955 World Series?" And I knew the name Frank Keller because I did a book with a guy from Seattle, Washington called Aaron Azuvarink, Baseball Players 1950s. And it was an obscure player, but I knew the answer. His name was Frank Keller. And the other guy couldn't get the answer. So finally, after a while, he said, "Well, I don't want to rain on Don Zimmer's parade." But when I saw the guy wasn't getting the answer, I yelled down, "Frank Keller." He says, "I asked that question for 50 bleeping years," he said, "and no one ever got the answer." So I had a laugh.
Was that before or after the Pedro brawl?
That was after the Pedro brawl, I think.
Zim was quite the character.
And one day I was in the Yankee dugout, and I saw this attractive young lady sitting at the end of the dugout, and people were actually milling around her, talking to her, and then they finally left. So I asked somebody, "Who is that?" That's Marissa Tomei. She was in My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
The actress.
Oh, yeah.
So I went down to see her, and I sat next to her, and we talked, and I says, "I really loved your role in My Cousin Vinny." Well, when the Yankee players heard that she was in a dugout, they came through like a conga line. Wade Boggs, Derek Jeter, Tino Martinez. So I had a camera with me. So I took photos of them and so forth. And I put one in the book of Marissa with, I think it was Andy Pettit. I had a photo, of course, in the book of Jeter when he just came up with the Yankees in 95. Might have been one of the youngest pictures ever taken of him. But it's been a great experience. I've met so many different people sitting in the press box. My first game at the ballpark was in 1954 with the YMCA. I was 10 years old, July 21st, 1954. And I went back there 50 years later on July 21st, 2004. I went up and sat there in the third deck where I sat that day. And a man and his son came and sat in front of me. And he said, you know what? He said, this is my son's first game. I said, wow. I said, this is a race set for my first game. And he took a picture. He said, would you take a picture of my son and me? I said, sure. And then he took a picture of me with my camera, and I was sitting up there, and that's the picture that they used for the front cover of my book.
Wow, man,
Cool.
that's amazing. All right, lastly, we can't let you leave without telling our viewers the unbelievable story of how umpire Mark Hirschbeck found President George W. Bush in the umpires room before Game 3 of the 2001 World Series with a Secret Service agent who was dressed as an umpire.
That's right. Well, this was a few weeks now after the 9/11 attack. And so the security was very tight. And so when Mark went to the ballpark that night to the umpire's room, first of all, his daughter Nikki and his wife were seated in the stands. When Mark walked into the umpire's room, he saw President George W. Bush sitting at a table, and he saw this other guy sitting in his locker stall with a gun around his leg and putting on Mark's umpire pants. So Mark, excuse me, he says, what's going on here? I mean, you don't walk in a room too often to see a president. And so President Bush says, Mark, would you take one for the president? Mark said, sure, he says, but would you sign, I think it was 6 dozen baseballs. And so President Bush signed 6 dozen baseballs for him. And they explained to him what was going on was they wanted the Secret Service guy to go out with the umpires before the game. In case there was a terrorist in the crowd, all right, they wanted a guy out there with a gun that was armed. So they had a Secret Service guy dressed as an umpire to go on the field with the other umpires. Now, Nikki, Mark's daughter, noticed that her father wasn't on the field. She said to her mother, Mom, she said, where's Dad? She says, I don't know where he is. But he was back in the umpire's room. And then after they went over the pregame stuff and the first pitch stuff, they went back, and then Mark put his pants on and he got back out with the other umpires. But that's what happened. It's an amazing thing. That was just before that was Game 3 of the 2001 World Series, and
Wow.
George W. Bush threw out the first pitch that night.
Unreal.
Cool.
Well, he is Rich Marazzi, rules consultant to 16 Major League Baseball teams and author of the recently published book, Yankee Stories Untold, available on Amazon as well as at many of your favorite local bookstores. And if our Canadian viewers would like to support their local independent bookstores, which we hope everyone does, they can certainly ask for their store to order Rich's great book. We've basically just scratched the surface of some of his stories, so we really encourage everyone to check out the book. And Rich, amazing stories, amazing career. Thanks so much.
This is the book.
There you go.
Oh, awesome.
There it is.
Nice.
Let's be sitting up in left field there on in 2004, on July 21st, 2004, 20 years ago.
Wow.
I thought that was a young George Steinbrenner on the cover.
Oh, no. I got some George Steinbrenner stories in there, too.
Awesome.
All right, well, Rich, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Okay, having good meeting you guys, and I wish you the best luck with your show.
Thank you so much, Rich. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, good luck with your golf.
Easier said than done. Well, after the break, we'll have one of our most popular segments where we interview campers from the Basketball by the Sea camp on a variety of subjects. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. We're here with Connor, who's going into grade 8 from St. Stephen. Welcome, Connor.
Hi.
Are you enjoying camp so far?
I am.
What's your favorite part of camp?
I really like how much we do knockout.
Knockout's fun. Now, can you name, I'm going to give you some little quiz action. Can you name any of the coaches that are working at the camp?
There's Kara, Aslan.
How about the 2 tall guys? That's all right, as long as you got 2 of them. I often forget their names.
Brandon, Vinny, Elias. That's okay. They don't really
I
do.
remember the two because I did free throws against Kara, and Aslan lives in St. Stephen too.
Okay. The three guys don't really do much work anyway, camp. If you could play a sport that you haven't played before, what would it be? Like you would like to try?
I really want to try tennis.
Tennis, that's good.
Yeah, there aren't much sports I haven't tried though.
Okay, I was thinking if I tried a new sport, it would be breaking. Did you see that in the Olympics, the break dancing?
Oh, that's not coming back.
Yeah, I'm going to, I thought maybe I'd do some break dancing, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, now, in a hypothetical game, if a one-on-one basketball, who do you think would win between Taylor Swift or Post Malone?
Probably Post Malone. Taylor Swift can barely sing, if that.
Oh, not a Taylor Swift fan. All right. How about Beth Swift or Post Malone?
Who's Beth Swift?
She played when I coached high school basketball in Connecticut. You have no idea who she is.
Oh, then she would win because she played basketball.
There you go. You got it. You got it. Now, quickly, a little geography quiz. Have you ever been to Connecticut?
No.
Okay, here's the quiz then. Which state is located next to Connecticut? Virginia, California, or Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Very good. Very good. Have you ever had Rhode Island clam chowder?
Edward Island?
No, Rhode Island clam chowder.
No.
It's good. It's a clear chowder. But you got it right. Rhode Island is next to Connecticut. And then your final question, then we'll let you get back to basketball. Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts? Which is better?
Well, I'm Canadian, so Tim Hortons.
Good answer. Mr. Trudeau will be proud of you. Connor, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of camp.
Thank you.
We are with Grace, who's going into grade 7, lives in St. John, the port city. Grace, are you enjoying camp so far?
Yes.
What's your favorite part of camp, if you had to pick one?
Probably the shooting game that we did called Moneyball, I think.
That was excellent. We do like that. It's sort of our way to introduce gambling to the younger campers. Can you name any of the coaches that are working at the camp? We'll see how good your memory is.
Name all of them?
Yeah.
Kara, Brandon, Elias, Joe, Vinny. I don't remember the girl's name.
Aslan. That's pretty good. That's you did well on that. All right, if there's a sport that you've never played before that you would like to try, what do you think it would be?
Volleyball. I'm going to try and play it this year.
Volleyball is a very good sport. I was thinking of tetherball, sort of the summer version. Do you ever play tetherball?
No.
It's that thing where you whack it and it wraps around the pole. No? Maybe it's not even played anymore. All right, now we have some hypothetical question here. If there was a one-on-one game of basketball between Taylor Swift and Post Malone, who do you think would win?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, Taylor Swift, all right. How about Taylor Swift and Karl Malone?
Taylor Swift.
Do you know who Karl Malone is? No. He was a Hall of Famer for the Utah Jazz. Taylor Swift or James Taylor?
Taylor Swift.
Do you know who James Taylor is?
No.
Singer, but before your time. Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Beyonce.
Yeah, she's got a pretty good jump shot from what I've heard. Okay, a couple geography questions. Have you ever been to the great state of Connecticut?
No.
All right, I will give you the quiz then. Which state is located next to Connecticut out of these three? California, Virginia, or Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Very good, very good. Have you ever been to Rhode Island?
No.
Have you ever been to the States at all?
Yes.
What states?
I've been to Maine.
Maine does not count. We don't want. We're trying to give that back to Canada. That's not really part of this. Okay, that's good. And then the last question, while we're on the Canadian-American theme, what's better, Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts?
Dunkin'.
Look at that. We're tied. We got Dunkin' Donuts. Grace, thank you very much for your answers and enjoy the rest of camp.
Thank you.
We are with Mia from Oak Bay, who is going into grade 6. Mia, welcome. That's all right. Here we go. Are you enjoying camp so far?
Yes, I am.
What's your favorite part of camp?
Probably the shooting part. I like shooting.
Everyone does like the shooting part of camp. All right, out of the coaches that are at the camp, how many of them can you name?
I don't think I can name any of them.
You don't know any of their names?
No, I always forget.
Do you know my name?
No.
Okay. Steve, nice to meet you. It's Joe. If you could play a sport that you've never played before, but you would like to try, what do you think that a sport would be?
Probably volleyball.
Volleyball. Okay, that's good. Mine would be basketball. So you never played volleyball before? Fun sport. Okay, now we're going to talk basketball. If there was a game of one-on-one between Taylor Swift and Post Malone, who do you think would win?
Post Malone.
Okay, Post Malone. How about Post Malone against Karl Malone?
Karl Malone.
That's a good answer. You don't know who Karl Malone is, do you? He's a Hall of Fame basketball player. He was really good, so he would probably win. How about Taylor Swift against Beyonce?
Taylor Swift.
Okay, Taylor Swift would take Beyonce to school. Have you ever been to Connecticut?
No.
Okay, so we're going to give you the quiz then. Which of these states is located right next to Connecticut? Now you're getting nervous already, I could tell. It's either California, Virginia, or Rhode Island. Which one's next to Connecticut?
I'm just going to say a random one, Rhode Island.
That's good. You got it right, Rhode Island. There it is. Rhode Island is right next to Connecticut. And then the last question, then we'll let you get back to basketball. If you had to choose, which place is better, Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts?
I've never been to Dunkin' Donuts, so Tim Hortons.
Okay. You're not missing much if you haven't been to Dunkin' Donuts. Do you like the Timbits? Good. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
We have our one returning interviewee from last year. He did such a good job. The audience wanted him back. So Gunnar from Johnson Settlement is here. He's now going into 6th grade. Gunnar, welcome aboard again.
Hi, it's good to be here.
All right, you enjoying camp so far?
Yes, I am.
All right, what part of camp, if you had to choose, would you say is your favorite part of camp?
Probably doing the dribble knockout.
Dribble knockout is fun. It is fun. All right, we're going to give you a little coaching quiz. How many of the coaches that are working the camp can you name? You know their names.
Brandon. That's about it.
Brandon's the only one? Okay, you got...
Joe.
There you go. You better get that right, or we would have ended this interview right now. If you could try a sport that you've never played before, but you would like to try, what sport do you think it would be?
Probably hockey.
You've never tried hockey before?
Not good at skating.
Okay, that would knock out hockey probably. I'm with you on that. I like hockey, but not good at skating. I was thinking of I would try curling if I can ever. Have you ever done curling?
I've played curling before.
Fun sport?
Yeah.
All right, good. Now we're going to go back to some basketball. If you had a one-on-one game, the woman just never leaves the headlines. Taylor Swift against Post Malone. Who do you think would win a game of basketball?
Post Malone.
Post Malone. Yeah, he's tough. Those tattoos all over. How about if it was Post Malone against Karl Malone?
Post Malone.
Do you know who Karl Malone is?
Nope.
Okay. He was a Hall of Fame basketball player. So maybe he would. How about Taylor Swift? No, we'll mix it up. How about Post Malone against Beyonce?
Post Malone.
Okay, Post Malone's taking them all. All right, now we'll give you a little geography quiz. Oh, first, your brother. He's not at camp this year. Tell us why he's not at camp.
He's out doing his hunter safety.
He's a hunter. He's taking a hunter safety course. Okay. What does he do? What does he hunt?
He likes hunting deer and partridge. He likes hunting those.
He doesn't leave the partridge for the pear tree? Bad joke. Deer hunting. All right, that's good. Hunter safety course. All right. Focus, Joe. Focus. Geography quiz. What state is located next to Connecticut? I'll give you 3 choices. Have you ever been to Connecticut?
No, I haven't.
We have to get you down there, man. It's the place. Rhode Island, Virginia, or California? Which one's located next to Connecticut?
Rhode Island?
Very good. Very good. And then the last one, I probably asked you this last year. If you had to choose between Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts, what would it be?
Probably Tim Hortons.
All right. You like the Timbits? What's your favorite kind of Timbit?
The coconut.
Coconut. Good choice. One of these years we'll get them as a sponsor, so we'll give out those healthy treats to the campers. Gunner, but next year we'll have to go for 3 in a row, and then you'll get like a special award. But 2nd year in a row, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Great job by all the campers there on those interviews. And how about that Gunner? Business in the front, party in the back. Yes, sir. All right, well, let's get right to the shout-outs. Belated shout-out to our editor, Florence Mitchell, who turned 30 last month. She is amazing and spends countless hours trying to make our show look good, which is not an easy thing to do with this face and Evans. Well, that's it for episode 74 of Mc&T Sports Report. I'm Joe, somewhere in northern New Brunswick, Canada. And to my right is normally Evan, who's not here. He'll be back. Thanks to Patrick Watt and the aforementioned Florence Mitchell for producing and editing our show. Along with Vicky Hogarth, they scoffed down the bagels I brought up from New Haven in record-setting time. Shout out Olmo Bagels in New Haven. That's it from Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. We'll see you next time.